All right, I'm stuck, so I need your input. You have to help me now. Do I talk about Genesis or do I talk about the gospel? Because the gospel is confusing and slightly scandalous, and Genesis might also be viewed in the same way. So take a vote. How many want me to comment on Genesis? 1. And the gospel? All right, fine. Sorry, Beanie. So, the obvious controversy here is the way Jesus responds to her. Let's unpack this a little bit. So the issue at stake here is that her daughter has a demon. That's a problem. So she comes to him. She's absolutely desperate, right? This is what tugs on her heartstrings. She's really afraid for her daughter. And she knows by his reputation that he can do something about this. And she can't. She's really powerless to do it. So it says she begged him to drive the demon out of her daughter. Now, and this is Mark's version. In the other Gospels, you get the longer version where she's following them. She's asking. He's not responding. The apostles say, should we send her away? Just tell us to send her away. And then he does it. And then he turns around. And then this discourse starts to happen. So there's actually layers to it that Mark just kind of shortcuts. So the first thing that's important is that she's a Greek, a Syrophoenician. She's not Jewish, religiously or ethnically. So that means she's not a person of the covenant, and she doesn't believe all this stuff. Well, how do you think the demon got there in the first place? You have chosen to live outside of the walls of God's protection, which is part of the blessings of the covenant, and now you're suffering the consequences out of that. So do you really want your daughter to be healed, or do you actually want to be in right relationship with God? Because Jesus isn't a magician. And how many people, when they pray like that? God, fix my problem. Don't change my life. She wants her daughter to be healed and then to go back to where she is as things have been and move about her business, because conversion is work and she's really not interested. And it would require a total identity shift. I mean, she's a Syrophoenician and a Greek, and she belongs in that community. So she'd have to uproot her whole life. I mean, it's a big ask. So, can you help my daughter? There's a difference between a baptized and an unbaptized person. So when Jesus says to her, let the children be fed first, it is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs. That might be offensive to us, but what is the difference between a baptized and an unbaptized person? And we have to be careful how we answer that, because we can't just reduce the sacrament of baptism to a beautiful ritual where we just feel good that our child is going to hear about God. Either God is doing something to this child that is radically changing them at the core of their being into something beautiful, rendering unclean to clean, unsanctified to sanctified, a vacant temple of the enemy into a temple of the Holy Spirit, or he's not. So to say child versus dog is to actually touch upon how big of a difference exists between the one who has been transformed by grace and the one who continues to suffer the damage of the fall in a profound way. And we should not, and our theology does not shy away from that distinction. And so when Jesus is responding to her, it might sound harsh, but it's diagnostic as well. And she replied to him, Lord. Now, she's the only non-Jew in Mark's gospel to use the word Kyrios, Lord. This is really significant. The fruit that Jesus is aiming at is being achieved. He's eliciting faith from this woman who rejects all that stuff. and she humbles herself. Even the dogs under the table eat the children's scraps. So there's an acknowledgement within her, you're right. I'm not a person of the covenant. I'm not technically a child of God. But, and then she flips the parable with her own parable in a beautiful gesture of a kind of faith. And because even that little thing is just give Jesus even a little faith. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. He says, for saying this, you may go. The demon has gone out of your child, out of your daughter. And she goes home. She finds the evidence of what is available to her by grace. And then the decision is up to her whether she's going to take that evidence and bring it all the way into the end zone. Does she become a disciple of Jesus Christ? Does she not? That doesn't really matter at this point, because she's been exposed to what faith can do, what a relationship with Christ can do. And therein lies our real dignity. And Jesus has invited her into that. So what might seem really offensive is actually a really healthy boundary, something we've lost in modern times because we're so concerned about feelings that we're willing to sacrifice truth. And if Jesus was so afraid of hurting her feelings, she wouldn't even have a chance of being saved. But he drew a line in the sand, and he spoke in accordance with those distinctions, always with the invitation that it doesn't have to stay this way. You can change, and all of this could be different, but it's really up to you. And that is the same invitation all of us have. I don't have to go to heaven if I don't want to. I don't have to experience eternal, infinite, omnipotent love in my life every waking moment that I'm breathing if I don't want to. I don't have to even change. I don't have to grow in virtue. I can throw a pity party on the daily if I feel like it. And God will let me do it. He'll let me do it. But is that really what I want? And hopefully this woman and all of us will say, no, I want what only you can offer. And the freedom of her daughter is just one small taste of what is to come.